right. Testing, testing. Perfect. All right. So, uh, for today's assignment, I am going to review the GTA 6 trailer 1 video on YouTube. And for the frame analysis, what I did was I uh, took the video off of the internet and I put it through a software which broke it down into frames. So I did actually analyze every frame from this, but what I'm presenting is select frames that I picked out. There's still about 100 frames here. I'll try to get through all of them, but I'll point out the things that really stick out to me, and hopefully that'll help you understand what my point of view on this. So, all right, let's jump in. I'll go to our first frame. Here we go. So, uh, of course, this is the first scene that we get. I think there's a lot happening here, and I think that's what's really interesting is that they throw a lot of information at you in the first scene. Of course, some of the things that people pointed out is that there's a prison in the background. There's also the skyline as well, and a little bit further in the background to the left side of the picture. I'll be using my mouse to point, and there's a bridge here, and of course there's a bridge here over this swamp area. Some of the things that jump out to people, obviously I'm not a big car guy, but there are a lot of uh, different types of cars. You can see that the first thing that they're showing off as well is that the ambient lighting reflects off of the concrete and the asphalt and that sort of thing. So the environment seems as if the lighting is a little more immersive. You can see the clouds look really amazing as well. I think that's probably something that's going to be included in it. Another thing that kind of jumps out to me is this giant tower. So I ended up actually screenshotting and blowing up this part of the image. So what I see here is a giant tower. I'm not entirely sure what it's going to be for. It's much taller than every other structure, and just by looking at the hieratic scale that's happening there, they're telling a story with this already. Um, so let's move on. I also blew up the image of the truck. This is like a brand. I'm not entirely sure. Excuse me, what this brand is, but it looks like a couple beer bottles. But it's just something that they're tossing into the world to make it a little more immersive. It's one of those things. So the next scene that you see is this sort of fence. It's kind of like the camera kind of pans from left to right or something like that, and you see this same. It's the same time of day, and whether it's sunset or sunrise, I believe it might be sunset, and there's those birds which were flying in the background of this image, I think. Can't confirm that really, but we're looking from the perspective of this prison to these birds, which are here. And I actually looked into it, so I did a little bit of background on this, and I actually looked up the prison that this takes place in, and it's actually a woman's prison, in a place called Homestead, Florida, and it's called the Homestead Correctional Institution, and I believe that's the sort of research that this team did to sort of create not only the location but sort of recreate mm, the emphasis of like where this is and that sort of thing. So um of course this is a woman's prison actually. So that's what makes it a little more unique as well, that this is like a woman's like a female detention center. And as soon as we move on, we get this over the shoulder shot of a female figure, and we're looking over her right shoulder, and what we're seeing is this sort of uh, prison yard, and everyone's wearing orange. So there's also a image to the bottom right as well. I'm not really sure what that is. This might be a bunk. This might be people's loved ones. This might be actually the place that they're staying. Who knows? Um, and a couple of frames go by. It's probably at least like 10 or 15 frames, and we get our first sort of image of what we perceive to be the main character. So that's something that I found pretty interesting. That this is the first sort of resolved image of Lucia, and as we're looking at Lucia, uh, she turns towards us and looks past us, and we get this sort of almost profile look with this sort of Rembrandt lighting that they're using there. So I find this pretty interesting, you know. And of course, if this is the main character and the hero, I could see this being that. And my reasons why are, uh, they casted a pretty beautiful looking character. Um, very stern, and from the get-go we're following the story, like this is like a woman in prison, right? Like to me that says a lot of different things. There's a lot of connotations there, whether they are uh, they have something to do with uh, power or power dynamics, good and bad, good and evil. I think there's a lot of things going on there that I'm really picking apart here, so I do find that pretty interesting. And this is the first close up that we get of another character, and it's an over the shoulder shot from the left hand side. And we get this this is the first frame that we actually see here. And what this seems to be is someone who is getting Lucia out of jail. Um, she is wearing a badge around her neck, so I'm alluding that this might be like a prison official. It might be a social worker. It might be someone who's involved in the story a little further. Um, I've seen some theories of people saying that this might be something that alludes to a good and evil part of the storyline, maybe that there's karma. And there's a lot of connections to different games that will do that sort of thing, but this is the one thing that kind of comes out to me. Is the first frame is this woman. Here's another frame just of her. This is if we go back, like this is a good image. And another thing that we might notice as well is just the the graphical change of the entire engine almost. So you can see that the lighting is still pretty hazy. It's pretty direct. It's coming from one location, but that the eyes actually uh, move. So we can't see it in the two frames that I captured, but it the eyes kind of move at you, and that's something that's a little different and adds a little more detail. Although some of the nitpicky things, which I was asked to include in some of this, so some of the nitpicky 3D things that I do see are that the clothing does look a little unnatural on the character. I feel that it kind of pops off a little bit, and uh, that's just one of those nitpicky things. Also, the lanyard that is going around her neck seems to be floating a little bit, which might allude that these things are, uh, these might be items that the main character might be able to interact with or wear or interchange on their body. Um, and I'll get into that a little further as I uh, analyze the rest of these frames. But here's just a picture of her face. You could also zoom in and see the name badge itself there. I couldn't make it out, but that is something included there. So we pan back, and she does not look happy. But also, something that I see here as well is the painting behind her is also representing a a ship or a boat on a lake, and it's completely alone. So I find it very interesting of this sort of like complementary imagery that's happening within the scene. There's also another face on the bottom right corner, and that's this woman's family photos or something. And there's a high vis outfit in the background that's kind of draped over. I don't think really there's that many important things. Then it does kind of a cut into this scene, and I find this pretty interesting. This is kind of a close up of one of the new vehicles that might be included in the story. But not only is it a vehicle, like an actual vehicle, but I also believe that it's a vehicle within the narrative and the story as we look at it, right? Because it leads us into the next sort of reveal. The next reveal being this frame that I captured here, and you see a lot of wildlife. There's the water looks pretty realistic to me. The uh, there's dolphins, what looks to be some sort of maybe porpoises. I'm not sure, but there's wildlife there, and that's like another one of the things that we'll get into as we look at the next couple frames. But again, we get a couple. It alludes to a couple more vehicles. I think it's pretty interesting that everything kind of goes in different directions as well. So these things are pointing downwards. The birds are flying from the right to the left, or I mean, to the left to the right, and there's also people as well. Um, we could of course this is like an image of like Miami or something, but or it's supposed to be a representation of Miami. I've only ever been to the beaches on the West Coast and LA and that sort of thing, and really, it does get this crowded, and that's one of those things that I find pretty interesting as well, that they took the time to actually include a lot of little people and little bits and those sort of things. There's jet skis, there's umbrellas, there's towels, there's lifeguard stands. So it really does speak to me in that sort of sense. I do get a yeah, I feel like I'm at the beach. I ended up capturing this shot. What it does is it basically shows this sort of worm's eye view where the camera is pointing up at this sort of apartment building. And I'm not entirely sure if this apartment building has any particular significance in the story or if it's just there to show you what the landscape is about. But the reason I picked out this frame was because I noticed a like a big lens flare actually. There was a big lens flare, and I'll bring this up a little more. I think there's a little conspiracy going on there. There's a lens flare that comes up in this one, and it looks very unnatural. Excuse me. I'm not sure if it actually leads into anything, but there is this lens flare that I did want to point out. Um, I I actually took the lens flare and made it into a negative to see. So I ran a lot of these images through different filters to see if there was anything kind of like in there or hidden or anything like that. But let's move on. So in this next frame, it kind of cuts to what looks like an airboat. I think that's what they're called, but it's just again showing off some more of the plant life, the wildlife. Also, that a lot of the scenes that we had seen before occurred in an urban landscape, and this scene itself is actually occurring in more of like in wilderness. Really, it looks like wilderness. So I find that pretty interesting. And it says a lot already. We've already gathered so much information, and the lighting is a little different. The lighting is orange and very golden, so maybe this is actually the sunset or the sunrise as well. um, then it cuts to this scene where you see all these kind of flamingos, and there's also some alligators and ducklings. There seems to be a deer back there. Uh, a lot of people are saying a lot of things about this, but it's just something that I've kind of observed. And this is a different type of bird as well. Maybe I'm not sure, but there's a lot going on in this image. It's basically again just highlighting some of the wildlife, what the environment looks like, the world. Then it cuts back to this scene, which I think is pretty cool. So it shows what I believe is more of a close up of what we had seen earlier. So I can dial it back a little bit, but I do believe that maybe this area with the blue umbrellas here is this area. So you got the blue, the yellow, and we got the lifeguard stand there. So that's the first thing that I think. I think the people who were directing this part left in a lot of stuff. Again, every image, every single frame had a ton of information in it, and it was very difficult to sort of dissect everything. Not only that, kind of playing it backwards and forward, but also kind of looking at things and these, a lot, looking at very specific things in this. So one of the first things that I did want to point out in these big scenes when there's a lot of people is that every single person is wearing a completely different thing. And that is probably one of the biggest giveaways of kind of what's going on here, because there's a little more to that. One of the things I think is that there's potentially an algorithm in which make which spawns every single person with different clothes from a preset value. But not only that, that every single person in this scene has a completely different hairstyle, has a completely different body type, and their accessories are also different as well. So there's three women in the foreground, and they look completely different from each other. And that's one of those things that just really speaks out. Another thing, there seems to be someone in the background, uh, like spray tanning or something like that back here, which again reinforces that the light is going to look pretty realistic. Also, the sand looks pretty real as well. Um, the I could say the same over here with the sort of imagery that's happening on the right, and I think they threw in a couple of jokes that I'll pull out as well. So the next frame that I took was basically just to show that off. So from left to right, here's the, giant booty, and the and but it's shiny. That's the thing that you should know about that. That it's shiny. That the skin, and I'll get into it in a couple other frames that I was looking at, but and reviewing, uh, that the skin really seems to react with the environment. So this person is getting oiled up or something like that, but you could really see the light shining off of them. In the middle one, there's a pet. There's a little chihuahua. I think that's amazing. That's so cool. That's really interesting. That's another split second, uh you know 20 frames, really. I mean, it was really just a beat. And on the right, of course, they put in a little joke. There's like a guy taking a picture of a woman's behind. So I thought that was pretty funny. But I did have to highlight that. They threw in a little bit of a joke in the background. It now cuts to what looks like some sort of chase. Typically in a climax, they happen to have these shakedowns, or people get chased or something like that. And what I'm observing is these two characters here, which the picture is essentially centered on. Again, we have the bridge in the background, and we have a port. There's a lot of information on that. I won't get into that stuff, but again, there's a lot of information in every frame, right? I tried to zoom in so we can get a better look at at those two figures. I just don't know who they are, and here's another frame of them a tad bit closer. So I'm not sure. You can kind of make it out if you want. I don't know. I didn't try to enhance it or anything like that, but yeah. All right, so cuts to this scene, pretty iconic scene. I wasn't entirely sure if this was Lucia or not. Um, tried to zoom it in again, so yeah, I can't tell. I really can't tell. But I will say this: something that really rings out to me is she looks different every single time she shows up. I do want to say that as well, though. She does look different, and I think that is deliberate. Of course, there's this guy who is photographing the entire thing, and there's the mysterious man who's driving this car. This car, by the way, is what looks like some sort of sports car. I'm not really sure, but it doesn't really show up again in this. So that part might not be as important, but it might just be that that this stuff is expendable. Also, she's wearing very expensive clothing, right? And she's got jewelry on. I zoom in on it. There's the clasp, or whatever this thing is called, the bracelet that she's wearing, the clothing, like the dress that she's wearing, is very shiny, and the shininess is actually bouncing off of, or the lights are bouncing off of the shininess. It's reflective. So from what I see, it looks pretty good, right? You can see that the yellow down here is the yellow of the sign. So really, the curvature of the vehicle even kind of reflects on some of what she's wearing. But here's a zoomed in shot. I took the time to kind of zoom in and and just take a closer look. And one of the things that I kind of wanted to analyze there was if the bridge of the nose had anything to do, if that was any similar. The main thing that I would say would define this character as Lucia or something like that is that she's got the hoop earrings and the bracelet. Those are two accessories that seem to be consistent throughout the entire trailer. Here's another image, and yeah, here's another image, but just to zoom in a little more, here's a closer image of the person who's videotaping on his cell phone, and then here's a closer image of the mysterious driver. So I was also looking at his brow line, I was looking at his haircut and the bridge of his nose, and he does look very similar to the sort of bald guy, or I don't know, the shaved head guy. Um, he looks a little similar to that. So I don't know. That's how I really drew together that part of the analysis. So I'm not sure. It could be the mysterious person, could not be. We'll go into it a little further because I took a few more frames of that. But this is just another frame of uh, this mysterious woman. Uh, riding in the night. But I will say my one kind of comment on this is it looks pretty fake. The hair just doesn't do it for me. I don't know. It just hair just doesn't flow that way. Although I don't know, in animation they do exaggerate a lot, so this might just be an exaggeration to show kind of what's going on. It just feels a little unnatural to me though. All right, so next frame, it cuts to this scene where there's cars and they're really fancy, and there's like some custom art on the wall, some street art, and I tried to kind of round this corner and pause, I guess if that makes sense. So basically, the camera is essentially a car that's driving down this street, and it kind of pans over to this like little meetup, right? So that's kind of what I'm showing you. And when I see that, I see another crowd of people. That's I just want to mention that again. When I see another crowd of people, they're all wearing different things. So again, this might be one of those things that kind of really uplifts and changes the entire narrative, right? That everybody is wearing something different. Um, that's something I wanted to point out. The cars have decals on them. I'm not entirely sure if these decals or any of the signages or the images or anything really pops out. But something that I did want to mention along the way is that once I start to see the license plates actually don't have anything written on them yet, and that's something that kind of interests me as well, right? That like that maybe every car is an individual entity that almost belongs to the people driving, right? But yep, we got people hanging out. Of course, there's someone holding a cell phone, so I think that alludes to social media. That might be one of the main things involved in the narrative, right? Moving along, we get this we get this scene, and of course, there's a lot of frames, right? But we move along to this scene. This is the first frame that we get of this area. I'm not entirely sure what this is. I mean, I looked at this picture for a really long time, and I saw a skull. Okay, so there's a memento mori in there. So I do think that's pretty interesting that they would put a skull in this. It's a little out of place, but I like it. It's something that when I look at film and when I look at video games and I look at animation and I analyze this stuff, that's one of the things that really popped out to me. Um, Again, probably the star of the show is this woman, this woman to the left here that my mouse cursor is going over. I, I really think that's the star of the show. The main reason why is people talking about like the physics, the dance, that sort of stuff. I actually panned over to the right a lot. Because I was looking at the skull guy who is holding something or paying for something. I'm not sure. He's talking to another lady or something, or I don't know, he she, I'm not really sure what that is, but there's a couple of women in uniform with champagne bottles and what looks like flares or fireworks, that sort of thing. There's people on the railing at the top and sort of standing around this platform here, although um, This person to the right, that's getting like the lap dance sort of situation going on there. This part does look a little fake to me. The hands just don't do it. I got to be honest, like just the hands don't do it for me. The arms don't do it for me. Um, it just for me like this, it just doesn't look like a real figure. It looks animated, and I tend to say the same about a lot of this stuff too. Um, I forget what I was looking at. Maybe it's the next frame. I forget. It's like, well, maybe not this frame, but again, if we look at the lady on the right, I captured it here, where it's just like this pose looks a little more realistic than this pose. Like this pose looks a little fake to me. I know it's like in the middle and it's kind of just like one frame, but like I mean, she holds it for like 3 frames, and it to me it looks a little weird because I think everybody's gonna be looking at the left over here, but on the right there's like this kind of weird, animation kind of going on, and it starts off really weird. It just looks a little fake. I don't know, her arms look very stiff and her hands just aren't really doing anything. And even in this frame, her hands just they're not even on her knees. It just looks a little weird to me. It just looks fake. But again, it doesn't seem like it's about that. It's really a kind of showing off like these again another lens flare, but just the lighting and the way that it kind of reflects off of the skin and that sort of thing. So I do think it's kind of cool. Not to be nitpicky though, right? But yeah. And, again, is anyone in here actually a main character, or are they just showing something off? Because I don't think they would actually show a scene like this unless there was there was some serious significance to it. Maybe it's the skull guy. Maybe it's this guy. I don't know. Maybe it's this guy to the left. Who knows? Again, I did a bit of a freeze frame. There's a person here. I'm not sure if they have any significance themselves. There's not that many frames in this scene, anyways. Then we have this guy, the guy with the gold teeth. He's pretty cool. Again, there's 2 men standing in the background. I'm not entirely sure what that is, but he looks happy. He shakes the hand of what seems like a friend. One thing I did notice here was that I feel like the bandana on his head doesn't look real to me personally. Although uh, this is a good display of just the tattoos. That looks really cool. That seems like something that's going to be just a big part of this. Maybe that it's like a permanent element that people add on to themselves. But he has gold chains. I think that's pretty cool. There's a symbol here with a bull. There's a lot of clutter in the background, by the way. There's like a couch and some broken furniture and a billboard, and he's also wearing these sunglasses as well. So he's looking pretty cool, wearing a lot of gold. He's shaking the hand of another guy, and the reason I say that they might be friends is a greeting like this would not look this friendly if it wasn't if it wasn't friends, I mean, like this is like a serious. I mean, he's looking at him in the eyes and that sort of thing. So I do think that these might be uh, people you're going to interact with. These might be. There was a theory where this guy is like essentially a main character, and it might be the guys that are driving the boats that we were looking at earlier. So I do think this is pretty interesting. I have not much else to say besides these guys are watching in the background. Um, and they look fairly wealthy as well. Like they might have, they might be material. I mean, it looks materialistic to me personally. I mean, they got the gold chains, gold teeth, the sunglasses. To me, it looks a little materialistic, but it also, this guy's shirtless and he's wearing a bandana. So that's kind of an interesting vibe too. So they might, it's somewhere in between, right? That's what it says to me. Then it cuts to this sort of bird's eye view, which seems like it's probably like a helicopter or something. We see a toll road on a little island, and again, it looks like everything's in order, right? There's boats. There's in the background. There's a lot of tall buildings. They all light up. There's cars driving. The cars are, following the directions. So that looks pretty cool. The next scene is we get this sort of boardwalk. It says boardwalk here. We have a hotel. We have the Dixon, right? We have three women in the foreground. Again, we have a scene with a lot of people, and there's uh, in this scene, everybody's wearing something different. I got to say that again. Everybody's wearing something different. Uh, I move another frame, and if anybody watches this, keep an eye on this guy coming out of the car, because his arm looks totally fake when he does it. So that's pretty crazy. Oh, and the last thing is Lance Vance. He actually makes a cameo in here. I think this figure. So he appears somewhere on the left hand side over here, and I tried to blow it up, but this is him. He's wearing the white, suit, right? And then he's got kind of like the purple trim there. Can't really make out his face or his hands or anything like that, but it's a guy that kind of comes from the left over here. And he just kind of pops out for the last few frames, but I did blow it up just to show you that. I thought that was pretty cool. All right, so kind of cuts to this scene with they're kind of showing off the nightlife, the parties, that sort of thing. I try to blow up the image as much as possible so we can get like a very resolved look at whoever this is. I really don't know who this is. So we've got that. Again, hand looking a little fake. Hand looking a little fake. It's not doing it for me. I think that we'll never get to a point where things look that realistic, right? Um, all right, but let's move on. We've got this going on here. This is an airplane. There's not a lot to say here, really. I mean, there's tons to say, but really, it's just there's kind of like a I don't know, some little mini like island things going on there, maybe some coral reef. So just a big boat. And I don't know, a lot of people theorize different things with this stuff that that you might actually be able to leave the island and go somewhere else or something. There's also this weird bulbous thing over here. I'm not really sure what that is. Someone was mentioning that there's potentially like going to be rocket launches and stuff like that, like some sort of NASA SpaceX type of thing going on, and the mention that some of them actually explode too, which is kind of interesting. So I found that pretty interesting in the research I was doing. But I know not much else. I do see that there's a couple buildings devoted to this, but this scene says a lot, but it doesn't say a lot in a visual format that I could really hang on to. Besides, you're just looking at it. There's the information that exists is really just already here. There's not much you could really say. I don't think there's a lot of hidden messages besides the rocket launches. But then we get another image of the female lead, right? And again, rooftop party. We have the skyline. Everything's kind of going on. We have this lady back here that's kind of looking at the camera, which is kind of awkward, but it's kind of funny. I did want to point that out. It starts off with her kind of not facing us, and she kind of turns towards us in this like kind of corkscrew pattern, and her hair flips out as well. Again, you can see her lips have lipstick on them, and she has makeup and accessories, and looking a little different. But she's still got her iconic hoop earrings on. You can really tell that that's her. I think that's the one unifying like semiotic visual that's gonna artifact in these images that's actually gonna like unify the entire narrative, right? That she looks different every time you look at her. By the way, every single person looks different every time you look at them, right? Everybody looks different. I find that pretty cool. Again, this image to me is very much so telling and showing at the same time, right? Anytime that someone includes any text in an image, it has to be deliberate. And this is a pure example of that. There's not much else you can really say. There's some stuff in the foreground. I mean, like this is the first frame that you really get. I didn't want to show much more, but yeah, you kind of see like an airport in the background, but yeah, whenever anyone uses text in a picture, it is what it is. Then it cuts to this like social media post. I think this guy's like a politician or something like that. And again, there's another airplane in the sky. They just keep they litter the sky with airplanes, I think. But here's a bottle of alcohol. someone's foot. I think that's pretty weird. There's a lot of women and an old guy. So, I'm assuming this is a rich guy. Um, he's got like a gold chain, and it seems like he's got a gold watch, and he's got some hat, and there's a lot of American flags. I'm thinking he's either a proud American, very patriotic, just chilling with the women, or he's a politician, you know? And there's something kind of hanging over the side of the boat here, too. I don't know if that's naturally part of the boat or if that's like someone's bra or something. I'm not really sure what that is, but that's kind of interesting, whatever that is. It's a little Easter egg item, I guess. Here's another scene of that. I think it's obviously it's recorded on what seems to be a cell phone, and uh, the cell phone is stationary, but the boat is moving across the screen, which is an interesting kind of it's an interesting editing technique. There's also a guy with a man bun, and you can also see a couple more flags in the background. So pretty cool. All right. Again, we get this guy doing this. I think that there might be a karma system or something like that, where like these people are essentially using they're essentially they wear a uniform and they can actually work and do stuff, like, so that's what this guy's doing. He's wearing a uniform and he's pulling the alligator out of the pool, and that's a job. And I think that there's potential for you to follow this guy, and he'll do it a few more times and then go home after at the end of the day. And I think that might be a really interesting element to this game, that you might be able to follow someone all the way through, and that they look different, that they wear different gear every time, and that you could be this person, that you could role play this, that there'll be that the maybe it's a lot harder to get money in this. And um one of the ways is actually farming and doing things like this, and actually participating in the community. Another thing that this also says to me is that you can see that he's wearing a badge, and I'll point this out a little later. That I believe that the public services will have a bigger impact in the immersive value of the storyline, right? And I'll mention this later, but keep that in mind. That I think that the public services in this are going to have a much bigger impact in the narrative than a lot of people think. I think this might be something that's really cool. Like you might actually be able to be like an actual police officer, right? Or like a fireman, or a paramedic or something like that. And I'll point it out a little later. Again, we get this iconic scene, pretty cool. Um, Hand looking a little fake. We got some people in the background wearing different clothes. Again, this is different person. Got building up here, some tropical plants. But this hand is looking a little fake. So that's just another nitpicky point out that I make, but that's all I got to say. But yeah, get another close-up picture. I hope this is someone. I mean, I looked up all these things, like have a vice day or whatever, and I've seen nothing really. Like, it looks like a bunch of corny posts. But you also get a little image of this guy here too, and yeah, you get a little more resolved image. But I don't know who this guy is. I don't know who this lady is. It The main thing that you're really focusing on is this woman, and I wonder if she's any different. She does have tattoos on her left butt cheek, I guess. But yeah. All right. We get this scene. Pretty cool. I find it kind of interesting that there's also an image grain that they include. I'll mention that a little later. That they actually put filters on the cameras to potentially tell you something different about the narrative. But again, we see kind of like this street takeover scene. I think that's funny. It's fun. You can see that there's people doing, like, maybe you can come up on something like this and participate. Like, who knows? Like, this is cool. Then we get this scene. Again, for a minute, I was wondering if this was anyone like really important, and it might be, because this one is very, like, you can tell that there's a lot of comments and there's a lot of like love and stuff like that coming up. There's all these names, like Zaza Nugget and your girl, like there's that sort of stuff. So I did read these things. There's all these comments. Again, uh, you would not add text to something unless it bared some form of significance in the storyline, right? So that's one of the things that I keep, really hammering in, that this text actually means something. Just use a couple still images, right? We got R&R. I think that's kind of interesting. That might be like this person's initials. Who knows? I mean, I really don't know. Um, okay, then we have normal life here. We have alligator again. Goes back. So again, just popping in that we go from one alligator to, and this lady, and to another. Is this lady this lady? No, maybe not. Um, well, yeah, you don't see the butt tattoos. Nope. Um, I wonder if it's a lady from the strip club though. There's some people back out here. Children? No, I don't think there's children. But there are some people out here. Let's just cut into a new scene. I don't know why I really did this. Maybe to show, there's another scene where everybody just looks a little different. It's mostly just showing off the wildlife again, but there was nothing I could really find in any of this. Like I really try to dissect this stuff. There's a guy in the background here who kind of turns around, right? There's some stuff going on here. So, I mean, there's some movement, but it's like really nothing that significant. Again, you can't see the shadows kind of popping up from the gator there, Again, this is a CCTV. It cuts to another CCTV shot, which I thought was pretty interesting as well. And then we get these sort of figures. I'm not sure who they are. If maybe, and again, just if you didn't already notice this, so it's got a bunch of numbers here. They got some writing here. We have a mailbox that's overflowing with mail. We have someone peering through. We have a figure in the background that's kind of obscured, but we're actually looking through goggles, if you didn't notice that. So our point of view is goggles. So that's a really cool camera shot. So again, we get another sort of lens flare as he kicks open the door. All right, so we got another a lens flare, and we can see that actually you can see it like it actually glosses the entire right side of the screen. So we get this little obscured lens flare, kicks open the door. We get a, I don't know, it's slightly more clarified look of at least the figure, but the face you can see through here. And then we got the guy in the background who's obscured, and then this guy who is picking up a box. I'm not really sure what he's doing, but they're holding what looks like like a rifle, like something a little more edge to it. And then these guys are busting through. He's got a couple slings over his shoulders, and get a little more of a close up of this guy. Um, you can't really make out his face too well. I tried to, and it's just there's not really much to look at there. But we get again we got to look at this guy on the right hand side. Kind of make his face out a little bit. I'm sure it'll be a little more defined as things come out, right? But we'll see. Then there was some trash bag over here on the right. Not really sure. Body 3 of 4. How many guys were there? There's one guy who went first. There's this guy, and then there's this guy, right? And then, of course, the person in the foreground who has the gloves on. Still don't know who that is. Um, does he have the watch though? That was one of the questions that I'm gonna ask as we get a closer look at the second guy, right? But again, we see police officers. Not really sure if that has anything to do with it. We have this guy who's being chased by the police officers, which is pretty funny. So we go from a very serious, crime, right? Where these guys look like they are like maybe drug dealers or traffickers or something, right? Like they could be, these are bad guys. And then it goes to, some another fun-loving scene, right, that you would see on social media, big naked fat guy getting chased by a cop. And it even says down here, right? Again, planet Leonida. I guess that's the state. That's supposed to be Florida. And okay, yeah, and then one of these, so it's a very quick frame, but you see two trucks. Um, this will be seems like it might be bigger part later, the bigger part of the. But there's two frames where like there's just a big truck that just covers the screen. Why would they do that? You might ask yourself. I think that everything is very deliberate, especially analyzing film, uh, working in film and those sort of things, every single frame has to be deliberate. I don't think that this truck crossing the front of the screen is a mistake. I think it was used to cut to this next scene. So we get this guy, and again, once again, we get a couple lens flares to show off the light. And here's a close up of this guy. He's some sunburned dude with a tattoo on his left arm and potentially a tattoos on his chest and his other arm. Right? Looks like he's wearing rain boots. He's got a nice sports car, and he came out to do this. I'm not sure what his shirt says. It might be like a band T-shirt or something. But yeah, and again, oh yeah, here's another lens flare. Pretty cool, right? This lens flare was pretty deliberate. Like the lens flare was from this one, by the way, was coming from the. So this is the car that has the camera in it, and it has its headlights are on, and it's reflecting off of the car in front of it. But also, there's the two lights that we get from this what looks like a tow truck. So that's where the lens flare comes from. It's pretty interesting. There's also some writing up here. I don't know. Scene D, guys, whatever that means. So we got this scene here. It cuts to this one. There's a lot of decals on the truck. Again, the truck has a lot of reflecting stuff on it that I looked at in great detail, including the rear view mirror, actually, or whatever this is. Um, so I zoomed in on it. I'm not sure what it's recording here. It looks like a fire. It looks like a building engulfed in flames. I could be wrong. I mean, it could just be something else, but it doesn't show it in any. It literally only shows it for like two frames. Like this is the first frame it shows, and then that's the second one. So it's kind of small here, and then it gets bigger, and then it only shows this for the rest of it. So I don't know what that is. I thought it was kind of interesting. I wanted to point that out. That was something I saw. Again, not sure who this dude is, but seems pretty important. Or it seems like this is stuff you can do. I mean, you could just drive a car with your foot, right? That's kind of cool. Put your car in neutral or whatever. Uh, but it looks kind of cool. Like it looks like the clothing is a little more evolved and more interesting. It's more unique. It's definitely got a style to it, a culture. It's tattoos. So it's got a much more relaxed vibe than what I've seen before. So I do think that's kind of interesting. Here's a close up. I don't think I saw anything else. This is just another close up. Yeah, I didn't really see anything else. There's some bungalows, that sort of thing. Like, who is this guy, right? Yeah, I just wanted to stop it here for a few seconds. Like, who is this guy? He's got a watch. He's got another watch. Let's keep going. So we got this guy, of course. Not sure. Is this the guy from the boat? I don't know. Is he just an old guy? Can you follow him? What's going on in this window? I don't know. It's kind of interesting. He's got a little one of those plastic pools in the background. Here's a close up of him too. This is about the most you see of his face. He's got one of those weird old man clear hats. It seems like he's retired or something, but he's got a lot to do. He's wearing shoes. He's wearing shoes and socks, and getting a suntan or something like that. I like it though. It's kind of interesting. I'm not entirely sure what this is. Like something that's really interesting about this scene is that it's shot from within a car as well. So that was something that really stuck out to me. Yeah, there we go. Pans to this, another social media post, whatever the Throwbilly Mud Club is, but I think that deliberate shot of the monster truck was probably this one back here. Isn't it? Except this one has mud on it, and the windows are down. But we got a couple guys here just chilling with beers and that sort of thing. Got the lady, of course. We've got the American flag, draped on her chest area and her bosom. So that's pretty interesting and cool. Like it's kind of got like I mean that sends a message in itself. So that's why I really like this scene. It's interesting. But again, she's got the American flag on the back of her trucker hat. I wanted to mention that as well. So you can tell like this is America. There's American flags up there. The truck has American decals on it. So to me, this is like this is America, right? And then there's some dude in the back. I don't know. Is he the guy from earlier? Probably not. There's flags on the truck. So I don't know. This might be like a really fun thing, right? We have this person, which I think alludes to neighborhood watch, I think every person's going to be armed somehow. That might be a really interesting element that's going to be a lot harder to hurt and or um be pursue and hurt, the NPCs basically, right? Like the background actors and that sort of thing. Like they'll have their own form of significance and that they'll remember you as well. So like if you go in a place and you do something wrong, that these people will attempt to find retribution. And that's what this picture says to me, that this is not just a joke. This is actually someone who is like, we're going to see a lot of this, as we go throughout this world, right? That we're going to see a lot of people who are that you will be able to affect, and they in turn will treat you with either open arms, or they will attack you, right? So I found this pretty interesting. It's also a live feed. Who knows? I don't know what to say about that. That there might be something to that. That like this social media element is going to have like a whole, a big footprint in the narrative, because it has such a big footprint in the narrative of our own lives. Then it does a smash cut. They do this smash cut of a guy jumping off of a truck into a table. There's not much that I really saw in this scene, except for there's like a little bit of cake in the background. There's a keg, but there's a hill up here. Do you see this? That part's really interesting. So there's a hill that kind of snakes over. You can see these cars that are kind of like looping over the contour of the hill. And that was a pretty interesting scene. I'm not entirely sure what to say about that. Um, it just people can make out other things about that, but I think that's kind of interesting. There's also some stuff in this guy. I'm not really sure what that is. But then it immediately pans down. We see some more cake, and the environment crashes upon this guy. So I wonder if it's something where the environment actually affects the people, right? Or the people affect the environment. You'll see things like that increase the immersion of the story. But yeah, let's get this guy. Get a closer look at his face, by the way, just in case he matters for whatever reason. This guy might be like, I don't know, the brother, the boyfriend, the father. Who knows? I mean, well, hopefully this guy's not a father. But yeah, I mean, let's move on. We get a couple signs over here on the right. Of course, this is from the point of view of the main character that we are we apparently think is the main character, right? But that's what the semiotics of the image and the entire thing has told us. But we also see a couple police cars. We see two different types of police cars, and then a third thing back here, which might be a semi truck. Oops. It might be a semi truck, but I don't know. It could be something else, right? It looks a little unique to me, but this scene says a lot in itself. Again, there's something over here that cures emotions. Again, it's funny that everything is blurred except for the text. I think that anytime that they've included text, it's very deliberate. I'll say that a million times. Does this guy look like the mysterious man from earlier? Does this not? I think so. He's got the same brow line. He also has the bridge of his nose looks very similar as well. While we did not see the bottom half of his face earlier, um, we do now, I think, and he's got the watch on his left hand, and that's something that's going to be pretty important. That's his defining feature. I think that's how you tell him apart from the other people. He has blue eyes. He's got short hair. I think in the other scene he had a little bit more of like a shaved head look. But he's got a little stubble in this. And again, I did want to point out a couple of things about the animation style that I noticed that his the bandana around his neck looks a little fake. It looks a little fake to me. I'm sorry. Looks, I don't know what to say. Although the ridge of the fabric does hold that shadow, that's pretty realistic. I don't know. I might just be a little nitpicky. But again, we get another view of Lucia. She's a very beautiful woman. I mean, and that's why I think that she's the protagonist in the story, because when they cast these people, they really, they go for like a very defined but good looking person, right? Like they always go for someone who's good looking. So they pick this they pick this actress, right? And she is beautiful. Like I'll go into a little more of analysis of what the face looks like, but we have, again, we have the earrings. We have red, which says a lot in itself. That's a cool color. And yeah, we get another pan. This is the first time that this not the first time, but this is like one of the only times that you get like a full frontal of the face, right? And again, I didn't mention this earlier, but there's like some beauty marks. She looks different every time you see her, and look at that hand. That hand looks very fake to me. Sorry, I have to be, kind of a stickler on that, but the hand looks a little fake. So when I hear that they're going to put some limitations on this, I think that there are. Again, I did analyze the back of the image on my own. I just really didn't see anything of significance. I'm sure there's people who do, but I didn't. I didn't see anything all that interesting. Again, we got the red bandana, looking kind of cool. This is the first like real look at her face too, by the way, and you can see a little bit of like eyeshadow. So she's got a look to her, right? And again, just to analyze the face a little more, she's got this sort of round face, a couple beauty marks. Her nose is, pretty rounded. She's got pretty big defined lips, and of course the hoop earrings and the ears that pop out. I think she makes for a very good, like almost like a Disney Pixar style main character. I think they really took a page from that book, but damn, look at that detail on the chair. Looks pretty good. Spent a lot of time on that. Here's another scene, looking pretty good. Again, worry, and then feeling a little more complete. Like feeling like not worried, like relaxed, almost like rest assured, like we're passing the cops, they're getting away. So they put a little chase scene in there. I thought that was kind of interesting. I We've got this scene. Do I show it a little more? Yeah. All right. So what? Again, police cars look a little different than the ones that we saw before. Do you want to mention that? So that alludes to maybe a gigantic landscape that might have multiple different police or law enforcement agencies. And we also have first responders. There's an emergency, so I think this might be something that like will increase the immersion of the narrative. Is that uh, you'll be able to see the first responders like police officers, firefighters, paramedics. You're going to see these people saving people and actually doing stuff, and I think that that's something that's very interesting. Again, I'm not a big car guy, but looks like there's a lot of different cars in this scene. They spend a lot of time putting a lot of different cars in this scene. I think once again that's deliberate. I feel like I don't have to say anything about the Weasel News. I will say that one thing. It's 10 o'clock in the morning. um Once again, 10 o'clock in the morning comes up a few times in the narrative, so maybe all this stuff happens at once. I mean, who knows? Like, this is all within 30 minutes, right? So the big car crash, I don't know if it has anything to do with the car. The car from earlier was red, if I remember correctly. um but who knows? They're talking about someone who did a dine and dash, right? um let's click it. Let's go next. Next. All right, so then we get this guy. um Vice County Deputy Sheriff, Sheriff's Office, Corrections. All right, so prison, prisoner, tattoos, eyes, purple hair. Very, very defining character, right? They put this thing here in Spanish, but basically what they're saying that like he's got some neck tat that reveals some information. That's basically what this says. I don't know what else to say about that. Besides, there's a little semiotic thing going on back here. I do find that really interesting. So, a couple things. Let me break this down. So, in the foreground, we have text that we may or may not be able to read. So, this is going to have like a lot of do. So, big thing here is that Spanish is going to be a big part of this. Spanish is going to be a really big part of this. So, essentially, in Spanish, it says confession written in ink, right? Uh, for tattoos. I don't know. That's the direct translation or something like that. But essentially, he's got neck tattoos and it's telling some sort of story. Of course, it says impatient at the top. This is, the prisoner. He's waiting. He's behind walls. So it's almost as if you're the prisoner and you're waiting for this to release, right? But I was looking at the semiotics of this. It's funny that they put this gentleman on the right, but they put this in the center. And actually, in the center, they have a woman and a man. The man is being eaten by an alligator, and there's a tree, and there's snake coming from the tree. I think that this is Adam and Eve. It might be a little bit of a stretch, but when they have a snake in the tree and they have a man and a woman, and the man is being killed, and the woman is wearing red and standing there, I'm not sure. To me, it kind of has that. Another thing too, it has a sunrise sort of look happening in the background, and I'm not really sure what this figure is. Whether it's a boat, it could be a building, it could be a bridge. I'm not sure what that is, but I do find it kind of interesting. So there's a lot of semiotics happening here. I can't put it together beyond that, though. Again, everybody is wearing something different. Not only that, every vehicle looks different as well. Um, I took the liberty of capturing this frame, another skull, once again. I thought that was pretty cool. But they also, everybody, so here's a picture, a closer image of the decal with the eyeball and, some of the textures and that sort of stuff. Here's a couple lines on there. There's green. These are flashy, so they're all different. So essentially, I think everyone's gonna look different. They're gonna cast every single person in the environment's gonna be wearing something completely different. That just has to happen. But not only that, the vehicles they drive are gonna be different as well. So that's what that says to me. Okay, so we have this what I presume is the same group driving through a police basically. We also see a Corvette here, and the person's getting pulled over by the police. There wasn't really much I saw besides there's a car over here that's kind of like pulled off to the side, and it's a utility vehicle. I didn't see much else. Yeah, they're moving. Nothing too out of the ordinary, right? And there's just a guy over here doing his thing. I did read all the stuff down here. Cops fail to stop thugs and motorbike terrorizing city. So, uh, essentially, and again, it's 10:34, so all this stuff's happening at the same time, which I think is awesome. But yeah, that terrorizing essentially means that they've done this before and they're doing it again. And I think that's something that we get a little bit of a Robin Hood. Um, well, it might be a Robin Hood type thing. I mean, it might just be people having fun and the police are just crashing down on them. And it's interesting. It looks interesting, you know? There's a lot to be said there. Um, let's see. Mental patient wins a Vice City Marathon. I don't know. There's nothing that really comes out to me. I don't think I remember. There was something with the text down here that I was trying to talk about, but I think I forgot what it was. I should have put some more notes down. Oh, there is I forgot. There's the Banshee up here, and oh, yeah. So again, this is alluding to the vehicles that we might see, right? I'm not a big car guy, but you know. Again, everyone's wearing something different. Who is this guy? Right? This guy I think bears some significance. There's some records in the back here. Again, the license plates are all different. We have who hurt you. We have some writing on the signs. So got some stuff. Oh, there's also a bridge in the background. I forgot. So that's how people have been able to kind of piece this together and tell you how big it is. And it seems pretty big. I've seen a lot of breakdowns on this, but again, pulling up things that people may or may not have mentioned, like who is this guy? And look at the tattoos. Again, clothing looks a little weird. I don't think clothing drapes over the arm that way. So it just, I don't know. I'm being nitpicky, but it doesn't look 100% like the best to me. Moving on, we have this scene. Again, we have Lucia on the left, and we've got the mysterious guy on the right. His hair looks a little weird. I don't think hair is shiny like that, unless it is, maybe. Um, looks little weird in that scene, but we've got the security camera, fish, beer. There's a lot of stuff. They're behind the counter. Oops, this frame's a little weird, but you can see the camera there. He's also holding a bunch of cash. But yeah, you can see their security system is back here. So I'm assuming, because in LA, sometimes they put the liquor bottles behind the counter because, I mean, people want to steal that stuff. So I'm wondering if they are actually behind the counter. That's kind of what it says to me, but I could be wrong because on the left-hand side, I do see some keychains and stuff like that. If not, they didn't do their research too well. I don't know. Either way, we get a close look at them doing their thing. So this scene's pretty interesting. We have a pawn shop, another pawn shop, and again another pawn shop. All right. Oh, and some words, right? Port Gelhorn, right? Something like that. So let's do that again. So essentially, there's a pawn shop here, and I believe that that's going to be a big part of this. That you can actually, that these mechanics of actually doing this stuff might actually be roped into having fun with this. There's a tower up here, like a big radio tower. I wonder if that's the one from earlier. But we have a car. We can see the tires and the wheel well, right? And it's kind of drifting over this. I think these are new mechanics, that they're trying to show off here. Again, this arm looks a little fake to me, gotta be honest. Again, we can closer look at the tires and the wheel well, stickers on the back. Oh, by the way, I was gonna say this is like a Mustang, but geez, did they make the Mustang with the extra door in the back like this? I don't think I've seen it, or at least the one I rode in did not have this on the back. You had to open the front door and then kind of sit in through the back, whatever that's called. So then, beams over another another big bright spot, right? Lens flare as it speeds off with a lot of dirt going in your face. You can see reflective values and just goes down the road. Another thing too, 55 peeking right through that window. It's really interesting how quick these frames kind of move. I mean, you could really see it, right? Really get a snapshot of this. But yeah, it's like out of frame. I don't think I put it on this presentation, but it's a little out of frame. Um, oof, going overtime. All right. I got to go a little faster. Uh, we have this scene where the the woman is looking at the man, and she has in the high radical scale, she's a little bit above him, which again tells me that she's the main character. She has the hoops. She's wearing the black tank top. She's looking, in this lighting, she's looking pretty good. It's got a whole thing going on. They're obviously in love, or something like that. And it's a scene about trust. You know, they're asking if they can trust each other. And Hand looking super fake, but still holding that little bracelet there, which is might be the woman in the car, right? But again, there's some money on the table. There's a remote and an empty beer. So is this is this a bond through those things, right? Through vices, or is this like an actual real bond and they actually have to trust each other? There's not much else that could be said. There's a picture back here, but it's obscured. Everything else is obscured. They're obviously in a hotel room. Like this just looks like a hotel room. It doesn't look lived in, so it looks a little clean. But these are things that kind of stick out to me as far as the image goes. They kick the door open. So immediately after this scene occurs. So they kick the door open, and I find it interesting that she's wearing darker clothing and red, and he's immediately pushed into the background of this image. So you can see that there's something going on in the bottom of the car over there, and the car door is swung open. But you can see they're pointing in two different ways. This is like the iconic scene uh, uh, from the Quentin Tarantino movie. I forget what it's called, but there's that scene where they're kind of pointing in two different directions. But check this out. After they say that they trust each other, they almost defend each other. So like he's looking that way, she's looking this way, and in this entire scene, they don't even look at each other's, area. So they trust each other without even, so there's a high level of trust that's happening in this story. So that's one of those things that I really noticed from this one is that like first off, there's less emphasis on the man, right? He's got kind of a darker color. He very much so blends into the background in this, and she's very much so like the even though that this part is foreshortened, it's very like she's the star of the show, you know. Legs looking a little weird, not gonna lie, looking a little weird. Um, right. Okay, and then it kind of darkens out, and we get this. That's pretty much it. Uh, I was able to finish in about an hour, so thank you for listening, guys. All right, that's the frame by frame analysis.